People having rights is an essential starting place. What we've done so far to protect our environment, and by extension ourselves and our health, have been inadequate. We must do better. This bill has the support of so many New Brunswickers. All MLAs have been receiving countless emails and calls, as the minister indicated. Bill 23 also has the support of experts including NB Lung, the NB Medical Society, the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment, and David R. Boyd, who I mentioned earlier, who was the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment from 2018 to 2024, supports this bill, as you may have heard on CBC's Information Morning or Maritime Noon today.
Now I'd like the House to hear a little bit from an internationally renowned Canadian who has spent much of his life advocating for the well-being of children through his music and through his foundation for child honoring. That would be Raffi. In an opinion piece published in Brunswick newspapers, he explained that the philosophy of child honoring sees children as full human beings whose rights, health, and dignity demand our active protection, and that by focusing on the priority needs of the very young creates a better society for everyone. He wrote that Bill 23 speaks directly to this idea. He noted that the science is clear. The developing brains and bodies of children make them uniquely vulnerable to environmental contaminants. Early life exposure to toxins in air, water, food, and consumer products can and do shape lifelong health outcomes in ways we are only beginning to understand, including asthma, developmental disorders, and cancers, he wrote. I think of the children who grew up in the elementary school next to the lead smelter in Baldoon, where dust laden with arsenic and cadmium built up on their windowsills and drifted into their classroom through open windows on warm days. Can you imagine what harm that did to those children in that school at that time in Baldoon? I think of the children of those people years later who played in their yards, in their gardens, playgrounds that were laden with decades-old buildup of arsenic, cadmium, and lead, which this province's environmental laws did not stop from building up. Madam Speaker, I think of what impact that might have had on them. I think of the children who grew up playing in Chemical Brook in Newcastle on the Miramichi, which carried a witch's brew of highly toxic chemicals from a wood-preserving plant out to the Miramichi River. I think of a mom I met whose home backed onto Chemical Brook, who told me how her son would come home from playing in the brook with his boots eroded by those chemicals. She told me he died young. Our environmental laws have failed New Brunswickers and continue to fail New Brunswickers. Look no further than the people who have lost their lives in the Charleur region, downwind from sulfur emissions in Baldoon, to ALS. Research done by our own researchers in this province, their work published in internationally renowned journals, peer-reviewed. Those were preventable deaths. They should have been prevented by our environmental regulations and laws, and they were not. Think of the suffering of those families, Madam Speaker, as a result of the levels of sulfur dioxide and particulates that were sufficient downwind of the major sources of air pollution there to cause extra cases of ALS, which of course we know has no cure and results in the death of the people who have the disease. This is the reason why this bill has so much public support, because the environmental regulations and laws that we have today are not adequate unto themselves to protect the health of New Brunswickers, and New Brunswick certainly not New Brunswickers most vulnerable. As has been said, this isn't a partisan bill. A bill like this has been in place in Ontario for, 20 years. Their economy has not suffered, Madam Speaker. The entrenchment of the right to a healthy environment has been even longer entrenched in Quebec laws. Madam Speaker, their economy has not suffered. This bill was based on a model bill that was the culmination of 2 decades of work by a group of nurses, public health advocates, environmental lawyers, and community organizers, some of whom who are here today in the gallery, who believe that children and all New Brunswickers have a right to grow up and live in a province that does not poison them. Un environnement sain n'est pas seulement un privilège, c'est un droit humain fondamental. Mais aujourd'hui, ce droit n'est pas protégé par la loi ici au Nouveau-Brunswick. C'est la raison d'être du projet de loi 23. Bill 23 thoroughly addresses the legal and procedural and practical issues with Bill 19 that were identified at Law Amendments Committee. Now, should the government, as the House Leader suggested, continue to have some issue, or the Leader of the Official Opposition, with the bill, there is no problem with making amendments at committee phase. That's the way, as the House Leader for the government side described, that's how we make laws in this legislature. So bring forward amendments. Deal with the concerns you have by way of amendments. But vote. If you say you agree with this in principle, then vote your principle. Vote for this bill today, Madam Speaker, at second reading, and let's deal with the details at committee as we're supposed to with our lawmaking procedures. So I urge all members who believe that children and adults deserve to be protected from harm to have the right to a healthy environment recognized in law to support Bill 23. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
All those in favor of the motion will please say yea. Yea. All those opposed will please say nay. Nay. In my opinion, the nays have it, and I declare the motion defeated. Les députés qui appuient la motion voudront bien se lever.
Ms. Mitton.
All those opposed to the motion, please rise.
Monsieur Gauvin, Monsieur Leblanc, Balbé-Balduin, Ms. Holt, Monsieur Legacy, Ms. Miles, Dr. Dornan, Madame Johnson, Moncton Sud, Monsieur Lepage, Monsieur Damour, Mr. McKee, Madame Thériault, Monsieur Chasson, Granceau, Vallée des Rivières, Saint-Quentin, Madame Boudreau, Monsieur Chasson, Tracadie, Monsieur Finnegan, Mr. Herron, Ms. Townsend, Mr. Randall, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Hickey, Ms. Wilcott, Monsieur Mallet, Monsieur Arsenault, Monsieur Bourque, Monsieur Leblanc, Chediac, Capacadi, Monsieur Doucette, Madame Vautour, Ms. Sodi, Mr. Johnston, Monsieur Robichaud, Mr. Hogan, Ms. Johnson, Carlton, Victoria, Mr. Savoy, Ms. Scott Wallace, Mr. Austin, Mr. Monahan, Mr. Ames, Ms. Wilson, Oromocto Sunbury, Mr. Weir, Ms. Conroy, Mr. Oliver, Mr. Russell, Ms. Wilson, Albert Riverview, Mr. Collins, Ms. Baucus, Mr. Lee,